Gran Turismo was directed by Neil Blomkamp, and if this is the first video you're seeing of me in several days, it's because my voice kind of went through a bit of a rough patch recently. It's still in the process of healing, so bear with me if it sounds a little off at times. That's what you're hearing right now, but I am on the path of recovery. This is the most I've been able to talk in about 2 days, and so I figured I would finally get in front of the camera. And now that that intro is out of the way, let's talk about the movie. In this movie, we follow the true story of Jann Mardenborough, played by Archie Madekwe, who is one of the best Gran Turismo players in the world. He knows his way around this game like it's the back of his hand. And when he gets a chance to prove that in a competition among other players, he comes to a point where he can actually drive a real car on a real racetrack. However, the thing is, a video game, you get a chance to reset and you can replay certain things. In the real world, if you make a mistake, there's no such thing as a replay. There are some consequences to that, and eventually he starts realizing what those can be. Now, granted, you're going to look at this movie and say it's a video game adaptation, which it is. But at the same time, it is actually telling a true story. The movie's marketing campaign has emphasized this quite a bit, and it very much is a movie that is telling something that really did happen. I'm sure some stuff has been, done more theatrically to sort of create this, more cinematic experience, probably. But at the same time, it is taking from something that's real. Before we go on any further, I want to say Neil Blomkamp as a director, as someone I've always rooted for. I loved District 9, what he did with that movie. It's one of the best sci-fi things I've seen in the last 15 years. It's one of my favorite science fiction movies of all time now, in fact. I've reviewed it on my channel, you can check out the review. But ever since then, I haven't quite loved his projects quite as much. Elysium was a very enjoyable movie, but it somewhat falls apart in the third act. Chappie was kind of a mess across the board. And then Demonic, which is a small movie he made a couple of years ago, wasn't particularly great either. I am happy to say that this is an improvement over the other movies that he's done. It's not perfect. It's definitely still flawed. It has its issues, but it really does feel like he found some of his mojo back, and it's great because he does some really great stuff over here, especially with the racing sequences and when it comes to visually making them happen on screen. There are certain moments over here where you're sort of put into the cockpit in a literal way because Jann is sometimes on the console. He's playing on the television and you can kind of see the car form around him. And it sort of gives you an idea of what he's sort of getting into, so how he's maneuvering through certain things in actual races. I think that's really cool. It leads to some very interesting moments, visually speaking. And the racing sequences are really, really good. It's in IMAX, it looks really, really great. And so I would recommend seeing it in that format because it really takes up a major chunk of the screen, at least 16:9 it goes. So it does look pretty good in that sense. And the performances are also pretty good in the movie. Archie Madekwe is really good as Jann Mardenborough. I think he's great in that role that he has to do. There's some moments with him that are very affecting, and he does a really great job of bringing this character to life. David Harbour plays the coach. He's playing this hardened, ex-driver who has seen a lot, and so when he sort of comes into this, he thinks it's a ludicrous idea and sort of working around with that. And then eventually the bond that he forms with Jann and eventually helping him, get into races and get his head of the game. I think he manages to do a really, really good job with that. Orlando Bloom plays this really cocky, bizarre guy at Nissan. Really good in the movie too. Honestly, the dynamic between the three leads was really, really good. Also, I think on a technical level, basically across the board, this movie is pretty great. I already mentioned it's visually pretty awesome, but the score's great. Lauren Bolt and Andrew Kaczynski, both of them do a really, really great job with the soundtrack over there. The way the movie sounds, incredible. It's like this big, loud experience in theaters. Definitely recommend that big screen experience. But sometimes it does take a backseat when it comes to some character and story work, which you can kind of see it as a bit of a coin flip. It depends on what you want out of a movie like Gran Turismo. The video games itself, you're just driving. You don't have a campaign like this, so I'm obviously, at that point of time, you're looking more from a visual standpoint. If it works out, great. In that sense, it does nail exactly what it needs to. However, There's also some character work that does sort of get swatted away in the whole process, which would have been nice because there's a couple of things that are brought up with dynamics with other characters that we don't really spend a lot of time with, particularly Jann and his family. There are certain moments with them that are really profound and certain things that I feel like we don't really get back to until much, much later in the movie. And those moments were really great. And there's some hard-hitting stuff over there, but I think we could have definitely had a few more moments where we got to have more emotional heart-to-heart, connections and stuff like that. Because those moments really did shine through. But we don't get a ton of that, and it was a bit disappointing. Also, I found the first act to be a little choppy. It takes a while to really get into things. Once we clear out the initial setup stuff and we're actually on the track, it gets a lot better. But leading up to that, it's about 25-30 minutes of movie, and I was like, okay, let's get going. Let's really get to the good stuff. But at the same time, it does lead to one other thing which I had, which was it's a little long. It's 2 hours and 15 minutes. It doesn't really need to be that long. It could easily be a few minutes shorter. Some things could have definitely been trimmed down. But aside from that, if you're going to ask me, did I have fun watching Gran Turismo? Absolutely. I do recommend checking it out. I'm sure it'll be a really fun time for you guys at the movies. Unfortunately, it has been delayed a few weeks because of the strikes currently going on. It was supposed to release today at the time of my recording this review, but it has been moved to August 25th, so this review is 2 weeks early. But whenever you guys get a chance to check it out in theaters, let me know what you guys think of it down below. I'm gonna give Gran Turismo a 7.5 out of 10. Like I said, my voice is still in the improvement phase, so it's gonna take a while for it to fully heal up. But bear with me for a little bit. Thank you so much for your patience. I appreciate it. And I hope you guys, enjoyed this particular video as well. Let me know what you guys think of it, or let me know what you guys think of the game. Have you guys played Gran Turismo? What are your thoughts on it? I'd love to know in the comments down below. Guys, thank you very much for watching. Look forward to more reviews very, very soon. As always, if you like this, please do subscribe, and I'll see you guys at the movies.